January 17th, 1942. 2:47 a.m. North Atlantic, 300 miles southeast of Newfoundland. The ocean stretched black and endless under a moonless sky, its surface broken only by the ghostly silhouettes of 37 merchant vessels cutting through swells that rose and fell like breathing. Steam rose from their funnels, dissipating into the frigid air as engines churned against the relentless Atlantic current. Inside the cramped bridge of the Convoy Commodore's ship, frost collected on windows while navigators plotted courses by dim red light, their breath visible in the bitter cold. Below deck, merchant sailors huddled in wool blankets, listening to the rhythmic groan of steel hulls flexing against the sea's endless pressure. 200 feet beneath the surface, Kapitänleutnant Klaus Brenner adjusted his periscope with practiced precision, the crosshairs settling on the lead tanker's starboard side. The U-boat's cramped control room reeked of diesel fuel, unwashed bodies, and the metallic tang of recycled air. Around him, 42 men waited in absolute silence, their faces illuminated by the green glow of instruments that had guided them through months of unprecedented success. For nearly 8 months, German U-boats had turned the Atlantic shipping lanes into what they called the happy time, a period of slaughter so complete that Allied merchant losses exceeded 2 million tons in 6 months alone. Brenner's finger moved toward the torpedo firing button, unaware that this moment would mark the beginning of the end of German submarine dominance. 3,000 miles away, in laboratories and radar stations across Britain and America, a technological revolution was reaching maturity, one that would transform the invisible hunters of the deep into the hunted, exposing them to a form of detection they could neither understand nor escape. The Battle of the Atlantic had begun 2.5 years earlier as Germany's most crucial campaign of the Second World War. British Prime Minister Winston Churchill would later write that the U-boat peril was the only thing that ever really frightened me during the war. By early 1942, German submarines were sinking Allied ships faster than shipyards could replace them, strangling Britain's lifeline to American industrial production. Admiral Karl Dönitz, commander of the German submarine fleet, had deployed his wolf pack tactics with devastating effectiveness, coordinating groups of U-boats to overwhelm convoy escorts through sheer numbers and surprise. The statistics painted a grim picture for the Allies. In 1911 alone, U-boats sunk 432 merchant vessels, totaling 2.1 million tons. The rate of destruction accelerated dramatically following America's entry into the war, as German submarines found rich hunting grounds along the undefended American coast. During the first 6 months of 1942, U-boats operating off the eastern seaboard sank 609 ships, a rate of more than 3 vessels per day. German submariners called this period Operation Drumbeat, but American newspapers grimly dubbed it America's second Pearl Harbor. For the men of the U-boat service, these months represented the pinnacle of their technological and tactical superiority. German submarines incorporated the most advanced underwater technology of their era: sophisticated hydrophone listening devices, precise torpedo guidance systems, and diesel-electric propulsion that allowed them to remain submerged for extended periods. Most crucially, they possessed the element of complete surprise. Allied convoys traveled across thousands of miles of open ocean with no reliable method of detecting submerged submarines until they struck. German U-boat commanders approached their missions with the confidence of technological supremacy. They had trained for years in the Baltic Sea, mastering the art of silent approach, precise torpedo calculation, and escape techniques that seemed to make them invisible to Allied countermeasures. The ocean itself appeared to be their ally, vast, dark, and impenetrable to the crude sonar equipment available to most Allied escort vessels. But as Kapitänleutnant Klaus Brenner prepared to fire his torpedoes that January morning, revolutionary technology was already being deployed against him. 6 months earlier, British and American scientists had perfected centimeter radar, a breakthrough that could detect objects as small as a submarine's periscope or conning tower from distances exceeding 15 miles. Unlike the crude meter-wave radar systems that German intelligence had already learned to counter, this new technology operated on wavelengths so short that existing detection equipment could neither locate nor jam the signals. The first indication of this technological shift came not through intelligence reports or captured equipment, but through a gradual, inexplicable change in Allied behavior. U-boat commanders began reporting that convoy escorts seemed to know their exact positions even when attacks were launched from maximum range under cover of darkness. Ships that should have been surprised by submarine attacks began taking evasive action minutes before torpedoes were fired. Most disturbing of all, Allied aircraft began appearing over submarine positions with uncanny accuracy, forcing U-boats to dive and abandon attacks just as they achieved optimal firing positions. Kapitänleutnant Hans-Georg Fischer of U-132 recorded his bewilderment in his war diary following a failed attack on convoy ON-67 in February 1942. "We approached from the northwest under perfect conditions, no moon, heavy seas, wind covering our engine noise. At 0347 hours, as we prepared to surface for attack, the escort destroyer turned directly toward our position and began dropping depth charges. It was as if they could see through the water itself." The reality behind these mysterious failures lay in a technological revolution that German military intelligence had failed to anticipate. American and British scientists had not only perfected centimeter radar, but had begun mass-producing compact units that could be installed aboard destroyers, corvettes, and long-range patrol aircraft. By early 1942, every major Allied convoy escort carried radar equipment capable of detecting a submarine's conning tower the moment it breached the surface. The transformation was most dramatic in the performance of Allied anti-submarine aircraft. Previously, patrol planes had relied on visual spotting, making them effective only during daylight hours and clear weather. The installation of airborne centimeter radar changed everything. A single consolidated B-24 Liberator, equipped with the new technology, could sweep an area of 3,000 square miles during a single patrol, detecting submerged submarines by their periscope wakes and forcing them to remain underwater where their speed and maneuverability were severely limited. For German U-boat crews, the psychological impact of this technological shift proved as devastating as its tactical consequences. Men who had spent years training to become invisible underwater predators found themselves exposed and vulnerable in ways they could not comprehend. The ocean, which had once provided perfect concealment, became a transparent hunting ground where Allied forces seemed to possess supernatural awareness of submarine positions. Oberbootsmann Walter Kessler of U-175 described the growing terror in a letter to his wife, written shortly before his submarine was sunk by Allied forces in April 1943. "The sea has betrayed us, liebste Anna. We surface in darkness, and still they find us. We move silently beneath the waves, and still they track us. It is as if the Americans have learned to see through water and steel, to read our thoughts before we think them. The men speak in whispers of American magic, of weapons that strike without warning, of eyes that see in absolute darkness." The symbolic power of radar technology extended far beyond its immediate tactical applications. For German submariners who had embraced Nazi ideology's emphasis on technological and racial superiority,
The sudden revelation of American technical advancement challenged fundamental assumptions about the war itself. Many U-boat commanders entered the conflict believing that German engineering represented the pinnacle of military technology, that their submarines were invincible weapons wielded by a superior people against inferior opponents. The reality of American radar capabilities forced a complete reassessment of these beliefs. Not only had American scientists achieved breakthroughs that German researchers had failed to anticipate, but American industry was producing these sophisticated systems in quantities that dwarfed anything the Reich could manufacture. By mid-1943, the United States was installing radar equipment on vessels and aircraft at a rate of more than 1,000 units per month, a production volume that represented American industrial capacity operating at levels German planners considered impossible.
The turning point came during what military historians now recognize as Black May 1943. During that single month, Allied forces equipped with centimetric radar sank 41 German U-boats while losing only 56 merchant vessels. The exchange rate had reversed completely. Instead of sinking multiple Allied ships for each submarine lost, German forces were being destroyed faster than they could be replaced. Admiral Dönitz, recognizing that his submarine fleet faced annihilation, temporarily withdrew all U-boats from North Atlantic operations on May 24, 1943. The statistical transformation tells the complete story of American technological dominance. In 1942, German U-boats had sunk 1,160 Allied vessels while losing 87 submarines, a ratio of more than 13 ships sunk for each U-boat destroyed. By 1943, improved radar technology and coordinated anti-submarine tactics had reduced German effectiveness to 463 ships sunk while losing 237 U-boats, barely 2 ships per submarine. The hunters had become the hunted, victims of a technology they could neither understand nor counter. But the true impact of centimetric radar extended beyond mere statistics. For the thousands of German submariners who survived encounters with radar-equipped Allied forces, the experience represented a complete transformation of their understanding of American capabilities. These men had entered the war believing in German technological supremacy, convinced that their advanced submarines and precise tactics would inevitably defeat inferior Allied equipment and strategy. The revelation that American scientists and engineers had not only matched but exceeded German technical achievements challenged every assumption about the war's eventual outcome. Survivors spoke of radar as if it were supernatural, an impossible technology that allowed Americans to see through darkness, water, and steel with perfect clarity. The psychological impact proved as devastating as the tactical consequences, destroying the confidence and ideological certainty that had sustained German morale through years of warfare. Kapitänleutnant Ernst Bauer, who survived the sinking of U-126 by radar-directed Allied aircraft, wrote in his post-war memoirs, "We had believed ourselves to be the apex of naval warfare, masters of technology and technique that no enemy could match. The Americans showed us that we were children playing with toys while they wielded weapons of impossible precision and power. Our submarines, which we had thought invincible, became coffins beneath waves that no longer offered concealment or safety." The radar units themselves became symbols of American industrial and scientific supremacy. Unlike German military technology, which emphasized precision engineering and limited production of sophisticated weapons, American radar represented a completely different approach to warfare. Mass production of advanced systems that could be deployed across thousands of platforms simultaneously.
Each radar unit contained hundreds of precisely manufactured components, vacuum tubes and electronic circuits produced by American factories operating at capacity levels that German industry could not comprehend, let alone match. The symbolic power of this technological achievement extended far beyond its immediate military applications. For German submariners who had been indoctrinated with Nazi theories of American decadence and industrial weakness, the reality of centimetric radar represented a complete contradiction of everything they had been taught about their enemies. Americans were supposed to be soft, weak, incapable of the scientific discipline and industrial focus necessary for advanced weapons development. The existence of radar technology, sophisticated, mass-produced, and devastatingly effective, proved that Nazi ideology had fundamentally misunderstood the nature of American capabilities. As the war progressed, the technological gap continued to widen. American scientists developed improved radar systems with greater range and precision, while American factories increased production to equip not only their own forces, but allied nations worldwide. By 1944, even small Allied escort vessels carried radar equipment superior to anything available to German forces, creating a technological advantage so comprehensive that German submarines could no longer operate effectively in any theater of the war. The final statistics of the Battle of the Atlantic reflect the complete transformation achieved through American radar technology. Of the 1,162 German U-boats built during the war, 785 were destroyed by Allied forces, a loss rate exceeding 67%. More than 28,000 German submariners died in action, representing one of the highest casualty rates of any military service during the Second World War. The survivors returned to Germany carrying stories of American technological capabilities that challenged every assumption about the Reich's prospects for victory. In the end, the development and deployment of centimetric radar represented more than just a technological achievement. It demonstrated the fundamental strength of democratic societies to mobilize scientific knowledge and industrial capacity in service of freedom. The same American research universities and private laboratories that had been dismissed by Nazi ideologues as weak and indisciplined proved capable of revolutionary breakthroughs that German science, despite years of focused military research, could neither anticipate nor counter. The radar pulse that detected German submarines became a heartbeat of democratic determination, each signal representing the combined efforts of thousands of American scientists, engineers, and factory workers united in the defense of liberty. In laboratories from Massachusetts to California, researchers worked around the clock to perfect technology that would save Allied lives and shorten the war. In factories across the industrial heartland, workers manufactured precision components with dedication and skill that transformed scientific breakthroughs into deployed weapons systems. The ocean that had once concealed German submarines became transparent under the penetrating gaze of American radar, revealing not only enemy positions, but the true nature of the conflict itself. A struggle between ideologies where technological superiority followed inevitably from the strength of democratic societies to harness human creativity in service of justice. The U-boat commanders who had terrorized Atlantic convoys discovered that American ingenuity, when fully mobilized, could master any challenge and overcome any threat through the simple but overwhelming power of democracy applied to the pursuit of victory.